Okay, so my tablet isn't really that big. The reference picture I have open in my actual program. I don't recommend this because it takes up way too much of your space, but for looking at and referencing and teaching, this is probably going to be the easiest. Let's see our whole tools in here so you guys can see it all. This is Psi, Paint Tool Psi. If you don't have this, let me know and I will help you get it. Right here you have your preview screen. Zoom in, zoom out. This is the line work that I'm working with. She's got a cute little bra. It's cute. I promised Jenna it was going to be good. Anyways, so this is our reference picture, and when you are drawing something like that, you want to go back to your reference picture quite a bit. And the reason why I have the purple background is because the line work that I used for the lingerie is white, and of course you can't see it on a white background. First off, feel free to go through and clean up my line work if you want to. It's not entirely perfect, but I tried. First thing that I want to show you is the select tool. A lot of people don't, when they're using this, they don't really know how to use it in a way that's going to really help them manage drawing in their spaces, the cell shading and such. So with line work like this, as you can see, I've gone through and I've made sure that my line work is all closed so that I can work on each section at a time. Closing off your line work means going into all these little spaces like this and making sure that when you select it, there's going to be a barrier there. And also opening up little unnecessary things that are going to close off parts like this. When you are first starting out, that's probably one of the most invaluable things, is to be able to separate each section from each other. What I usually do is I make a separate layer for the clothes and I make a separate layer for the skin. Some people make 20 layers and put everything on a separate layer, or different colors on separate layers and stuff like that. I hate doing that. I think it's unnecessary. What we're going to do first is just lay down basic color. So you can hit all image. That's right here underneath your tools. There's working layer, selection source, and all image. Working layer means that you're working with just the layer that is selected, the blue layer. All image means that I can take this purple, I can make it invisible and do transparency and do all image, and then I don't have to worry as long as it's out here. So that's her hair. Oh, I need to fix that one too. Her skin. And she also has skin under here, so I will show you guys how to do that later, but I just go through when I have something really complicated like that, and I just select as much as I can, and then I come over here to the select pen. This is one of my most favoriteest things. And basically you're just drawing with selection. And it fills up all your little gaps and spaces. Perfect. And you don't have to get it exactly perfect, because, when you're working, you're going to fill it in and fix it. This is really important when you're working with line work like this. Whoops. See, this is why I don't put the picture in the actual program. I usually have it on a tablet or my computer screen, my desktop. Sometimes I put it on my TV. I have Chromecast. I can cast it. So when you're working with things like eyelashes, line work is already finished and there's like lots of eyelashes. This select tool works super, super good. Eyelashes and eyebrows, you just draw right over the top of the selection. And you only have to do this once, because once you have your skin layer built, then you don't have to do it again. Let's see. And this is on transparency fuzzy right now, because I basically want to just get as much as I can inside these lines. And this is a good thing too, to take a look at your reference picture. Right here, like you can see what I did. This is like fuzzy hair. So you want to actually select that. The hair layer is going to go over the top of the skin layer, so you can do whatever the hell you want with the hair layer later. You can always change it if it's on different layers. That's the really cool thing. So I think that's about good. That looks good to me. She is very pale, so I usually go up here somewhere inside the orangey skin tones, maybe hit it down a little pink, and then go really, really, really light for your base layer for white people. For darker people, or people with olive skin tones, just kick it up a notch. Any of these in here, close to the grays, are going to be good. You don't want to super saturate it so everybody looks like they're tan or whatever. You can also do things like sample. This is the sample tool, is right here underneath this circle. It's this little tool right here. And you might have a sample tool on your pen also. I used to have one of those. And you can sample one of the neutral colors on her skin. And then go a little lighter than that for your base tone. What I do for skin is 3 colors. I do the base tone, highlight, shadow, and then I also do a yellow for light highlights, and pink to add color. And it depends on what the skin tone is as to what color the pink is. So you can either flood fill, or what I like to do is just grab the pen, doesn't really matter, fill it in. So then, now you hit clear. So what I like to do with the skin layer, because you are pretty much not going to be working outside of that, is to hit lock preserve opacity. And this is something that I learned from Daunt, because I'm not that cool. Sitting here taking this tutorial from me, and I really have no idea what I'm doing. So that's how you select a layer after you've filled it all in. It's actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it. And when you work, you do one layer at a time. You know, if you go systematically. If you don't, you know, whatever, doesn't really matter. You can also, if your skin layer is very simple, it's very easy. You can just hit it like that, which this one is, thankfully. You know, a lot of times when you're doing pictures of people, their skin will be broken up by a lot of things, hair and clothes and things like that. So the other way that I showed you is easier. But on this one, there's just 2 big chunks of skin, so hitting it like that might be a little bit easier. So the next one is the clothes. Another layer for the clothes. And on this, I think that I'm going to put her shirt and her pants on. Her pants are probably going to go on the hair layer, because they're far away. So her shirt. And we like Crystal's taste, so we're probably going to go with purple. She's way smarter about shit like that than I am. We don't question the queen. Let's see. I am not going to bother with these little spots right now, because I'm probably just going to end up making them black, so, or very, very dark gray because they are shadowed. I gave you something a little bit challenging as far as the clothes go. You can flood fill it in and it will look great, or you can rise to the challenge and put in all of these folds and stuff, and I will show you how to do that. Either way, it will look cool. And the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I'm going through and I'm selecting all of these little marks is because when we go and blend, if those little marks don't have anything behind it, sometimes they can get messy, problematic. I hate that. It bothers me. Might not bother you. Okay, so purple. We can sample it, or we can just go with our gut. Nah, that looks good enough. So always make sure you're on the right layer. This is the thing that you guys probably both watched me on live stream do this 1,000 times, where I do it on the wrong layer and then I scream at myself like so. Nope. This is where Control Z is your best friend. Make sure you're on the right layer. And sometimes, like, some people like to label their layers. Clothes and hair and stuff like that. I don't. I live recklessly. Okay, so the next one will be hair. And the whole thing is I just put things on separate layers so they're far away from each other. There's really no other rhyme or reason to it. So on this one, it's going to be all of it, the whole thing. Nope. Working layer. We have working layer selected. That's always a good thing to remember. It's going to be hair, eyes, lips, and pants. Most of the time I put lips on the same layer as the skin, but she's wearing a very, very dark, very bright lipstick, and I do not want to deal with that being mixed in with my skin tones when I blend, so I'm putting it on a separate layer. When you are drawing dudes and such, don't bother putting the lips on a separate layer. Don't even bother lining them, because that looks silly. they're not wearing lipstick. Lipstick is much easier to do if you put it on a separate layer. So let's clean this up real quick. And hair is something that is really kind of haphazardly, so there's a lot of flinging your pen around for doing the hair layers. She has very black hair in this, but the hair is the same as the skin. I use 3 colors. I use a low light, a highlight, and a base. And so the base I'm going to do a little lighter than what her hair is, so that we can... Oh, come on, pen. So we can do a good, nice, like, black low light. And the same goes for the pants, too. Let's do blue for the pants, actually. The pants in your reference picture, they're pretty gray, honestly. I might take the saturation down, but for now we're going to do blue. And her eyes and lips. So this is a good one, actually, to sample. Her lips are a very, very, you can see there's the low light, there's the highlight, and here's the midtone. So you sample that midtone right off the screen. Blam. Done. And her eyes are very dark. So it's the same thing though. Almost always the same thing. In eyes, sometimes I'll do 5 or 6 colors, depending. But most of the time, it's highlight, low light, base. So she has very chocolatey brown eyes. So that is what we will do. Okay, so that is your base colors, and as you can see, it already looks pretty cool. You're already halfway there. Okay, so what everybody wants to know is how to make eyes and skin and hair and all that look cool. So we will start right here on the face. As far as her skin goes, her highlight is going to be very, very, very light. And I usually use either a brush or an airbrush for this. And I go pretty big right off. So there's that highlight right there. And I put that highlight right there on her skin. So make sure you hit that sample, the little dropper tool, get your color back. Sometimes I will come over here and do that whole sample thing and put my colors on the palette. That's this row of palettes up here on the top. You can either save your colors like this. There's the gradient tool, all that stuff. I don't use any of that stuff because I don't know how to. Traditionally trained artist. So yeah, once you close that, you open it back up in the same section and it's still there. All those colors are still going to be there. So a lot of times, you know, if I am worried about the low lights and highlights messing my colors up, then I'll just save them. Okay, go back to highlight. So we have this, and on her nose you can see she's got a little, like so, on her lip. Oh, I hate how touchy this pen is. Jumping all over the place. Okay. So basically what you're doing with the highlight is you're just kind of filling in where you see the light tones in the skin. And shit. This is a great lesson, kids. I'm on the wrong layer. So this is a lesson in how to undo. I'm good at undo. Undoing is easy. Okay, so the layer is locked, and what that means is, look at this fancy shit. So, see how it doesn't draw outside the lines? Yeah. That means that the pixels that are filled are going to stay filled, and the ones that aren't will remain opaque. Okay, so let's try this again. Everywhere where we see the highlight is where we're shooting. And in places where it's really heavy, you know, go a little darker. What I have it set here is airbrush. I have it on spread and noise, 100%. I have my tool is at about 50. The edge hardness settings, I don't even know what these are. I haven't ever changed them. Or maybe I have. I don't know. I'm pretty bad at using these brushes. Um, but the airbrush will do the job for you. So, as you can see, I'm working in the area that I can see. I'm just kind of scrubbing in these highlights. And this is why you want to use a reference picture all the time, because lighting is what really brings a picture to life. It's how colors are defined and stuff like that. It's really hard for me to draw and talk at the same time. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate mostly just on this part of her face for now, so that, you're not watching me do the whole entire picture. That's a thing for a different time. So what I usually do is you get your blur tool, and I have it jacked all the way up, just a little bit of dilution, full blending, full density, and as you can see, look at that. That's magic. So I don't blend all of it all at once. We do the highlights and lowlights, if you recall. So the lowlight, I go pretty dark. See these dark colors in here? Where you want to shoot for. You're probably going to do a fourth color for your finishing stuff, where you put in the blacks and the heavy shadows, but for the first layer of skin, it's not. Oh, it's totally the wrong spot. Wow. It's like, sure, I know what I'm doing. Oh, man. Tablets with keyboards, dude. Okay. So, yeah, lesson learned. Start with an anchor point. So, right here, on the inside of her eye, we have a very, very, very dark spot. And we just go out. Like so. Go really heavy on all the darkest spots. And we'll blend all this in later. Like, don't worry about blending right now. Just fill in where you see these heavy shadows. Or just fill in where you see these heavy shadows. We'll blend it all later. And this first pass that you do is not going to be even remotely perfect. It's going to be pretty messy and ugly and weird, and you're going to tweak your color settings and make things more saturated or less saturated or whatever. I'm never, ever happy with the first color that I pick out, unless it's somebody that I've drawn a lot. And I should probably use palettes and stuff like that, but I don't. I just make up every picture from scratch. I don't even save my settings in here, so that might be something that might work out better for you. You could look that up on how to do that. I know that you can. I know that it's probably a smart thing to do for somebody who's a little less experienced, to save your settings and save your palettes and stuff, but I'm not particularly So, what else can we see? It's dark right here. Sort of kind of right around there. Yeah, that looks about right. There's a lot of dark in her eyebrow. We should go ahead and fill that in too. Okay, so now this is the first pass of blur. Don't overdo this. What you're doing is you're just softening it up. Just passing over the top of it. You don't have to make everything look soft like a freaking Rembrandt painting. You know, you're just trying really hard not to fuck it up. That's what you're doing. You're just blending it in. You're just seeing, like pulling this gradient out. That's blend the hell out of that, because it's a really, you can see in the picture, it's a really, really long, soft gradient on her skin. Same with like right here. You do that right on those edges, but the rest of it, you just barely hit it. Just hit it just a little. Less is more when you're doing this part. Just do it like little tiniest little taps. And you can go small. Smaller is better. Because you don't want to make mud. Once you start, it's so easy to make mud when you're in this particular part. You just come over here and you just start doing this, right? And you just end up with like this weird nothing if you overdo it. So that's why you just barely tap it. And you can always go in later and blend little spaces to make it look good. But mostly, you're just gonna do just a little. You see this little spot around her mouth is pretty complicated. This is a really complicated space right here around her mouth. So this is going to take more work. There's parts that are really easily understood as gradient, and there's parts that are highlighted and edges and stuff, and that's something that you're going to have to work out with the gentle touches with the airbrush or the brush, or say fuck it and leave it like this. As you can see, that looks pretty close to what we have going on. We're missing a little bit of low light right here. I did not put enough in. That was because I was being careful. Because you can see there's this little highlight here. And I really like complicated little highlights. You are more than welcome to pretend they don't exist and get rid of them. They're probably too complicated and may or may not actually make the picture look better. When you're working with super realistic shit like I do, it's a thing. So as you can see, this is not nearly as dark as the final image, but that's really up to you. I'm probably, when I finish this, going to leave it very much like this. It's not going to be as dark as the original image. Take a little low light, scrub it in here right around the edges of where the original shadows are. Just barely blend those things in. And you guys know my art well enough. I'm probably going to leave it quite a bit like that. That's it. That's what it looks like. And you can see that looks like her. That's her nose. It's not as smooth and perfect and beautiful as her real nose, because she's Crystal fucking Lee. Nothing is as beautiful as she is. Okay, so that's skin. That's your basics of skin. So here's the thing that I like to do for blush, because you know, you get this really perfect skin thing going on. It looks super, super good. You love it. And you're like, hey, you know, she needs a little blush on her cheeks. And then you go like, with the blush, and suddenly you fucked everything up really bad. So let's not do that. Instead, we get a new layer, brand new layer, right above the skin layer. And we go up here to the mode, right above the layer things, and we hit multiply. And go down to about 24, 25, somewhere around there. Just buff a little bit of airbrush pink right over the top of her cheek. It's like putting blush on in the mirror. And then you go up to the blur. The blur is like our best friend when we're working with soft female faces. Make sure that there's dilution on the setting. It doesn't really matter how much. I don't really care. Just a little, enough that you can buff out the edges of this blush. And then suddenly you have a nice, pretty pink cheek that really illustrates how gravelly her fucking cheek looks. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't leave it exactly like that, but, you know, close. There you go. Beautiful pink cheeks. You can do that also to add more dark around the eyes, and not screw your shit up. You come up here to multiply. Add all that dark around the eye to do the really smoky eye look that they all like. And then blur right around the edges. And you have not screwed up your skin layer at all. And it is beautiful. Okay. Next, we'll do eyes. So I'm going to turn off this multiply layer. That is just the little blinky eye up in the top left-hand corner. That's off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on. Okay, anyways. So, eyes. Eyes are on the same layer as the hair and the pants. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lock this layer once I have all of my little spaces filled in. What I'm doing right now is I'm filling in, doing her eye with white before I lock the layer. And of course, you know, that's all going to get changed. And this is where the purple layer comes in very handy again. So now we can see with the purple where we're missing white. Remember, once you lock the opacity, any of the little edges that you've you left only half filled in will only fill in halfway. Once you lock the opacity. Okay, so now I'm going to preserve opacity right underneath, right here. I think you can see that little yellow hovering brush. I'm going to hit preserve opacity, and now this will only draw where we have already put down stuff. So the insides of eyes are pink. I usually just randomly choose sort of, well, actually what you can do is you can sample the skin tone and knock it down a few, or knock it up, I guess, a few red, and then lighten it. See, that kind of blushy pink. If you look at the inside corner of your eye, that's what that looks like. And it's the same thing. Highlight, low light shadow. And I fill in that little corner, just barely. And I usually do the outside corner too because our eyes are a little bit red over there. And then I go all the way up to a very, very high, and put a little bit of highlight right at the top. Okay, and so eyes are also shadowed, and I just usually do that in sort of a pinkish gray color, pretty close to what you did for the inside. Just take down the saturation a little up here, and just go right around the edges of the eye, where you can see in the picture. You get your dark. And then, of course, always a blur. Blur that in all soft. And then what I usually do is I go the white and then I hit right in the middle. And blur that again so that I make sure that the eye still has a lot of white look to it. And in this picture you can see the line that I put in here for you guys. I don't actually expect you to keep it. This is called a guideline. This is your shine. It's a little shine mark. And it's in the picture. So this is still on the eye layer. I'm putting this little shine mark in. And that's it. That's all I'm gonna do. It's gonna look great. But that was easy. It was black, it was white. The airbrush. A little bit of white, fade it out. A little bit of black to change the shape, so that it looks like what it looks like in the picture. Yeah, a little bit better. And that part's done. You will erase this guideline once you are finished with the rest of the eye. Now, so that I don't screw everything up really badly, I'm going to select just the eye, just the brown. And that should have been on color difference. I'm not really sure why that worked. There we go. And when you select, if you don't select quite enough, you can come up here to selection and hit increment. And that actually pushes your selection out by 1 pixel. Increment. It's magic. I love it. Okay, so still with the airbrush, you can do this with the brush tool. The iris is radiant. That means that the lines go from the inside out. So when you are coloring eyes, they are darker at the top because of the shadow of your eyelashes. And the lines of color go from the outside in to the center, and from the center out. Her eyes are very, very, very dark. We're going to do them a little bit lighter than what they are in the picture because we can do what we want. Now I'm putting a color in the middle after I put the dark color in. And this is just a light touch. I'm just like literally scribbling it in. Now I'm just dotting. That's just a little dot. So we hit like a darker color, and I'm just like anywhere on this brown, just dark. And putting in the long radiant lines again to break up that line. And now I'm going to darken it up with black. Very, very, very sparse black lines. Be very, very careful. You can lower the density of your brush if that helps. But basically, you are just doing little marks from the outside in and from the inside out. and all the way across every once in a while, but mostly from the inside out and from the outside in. And I like that. I think that's good enough. So as you can see, the eyes, there's a lot of scribbling, there's a lot of messing the colors up, there's a lot of, smooshing it all together and stuff, but mostly the important part is doing the lines from the very center of the iris out and from the outside in. That gives it that radiant iris look. There we go. Check it out.